What happens when Hollywood's most disciplined superstar walks into a daytime talk show expecting polite questions, and instead collides with a line of interrogation sharp enough to crack his calm? What happens when Tom Cruise, the man trained to outrun explosions without blinking, suddenly finds himself standing still under studio lights, facing Sonny Hostin's unflinching stare? Before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to The Truth Narrator, hit like, and drop a comment right now, because stories like this don't unfold twice, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. The studio hums with a low, restless energy long before the cameras roll. The View has always thrived on tension, but today there's something different in the air. An almost electric charge that makes producers glance at each other just a second longer than usual. Tom Cruise sits upright in his chair, spine straight, hands folded neatly, the posture of a man who has spent decades mastering control. He smiles, the famous smile, practiced yet warm, the one that has sold millions of tickets and convinced audiences to follow him off cliffs and into burning buildings. The crowd applauds as he's introduced, their cheers echoing against the polished walls. To them, he's not just a guest, he's an icon. Sonny Hostin watches him carefully. Not with hostility, not with admiration either, but with intent. Her expression is calm, composed, but behind it there's focus, like a prosecutor reviewing a case file she knows by heart. She's read the headlines, the controversies, the whispers that trail Tom Cruise like a shadow no stunt can outrun. And today, she's not here to let those shadows slip by unexamined. The opening minutes are smooth. Too smooth. Jokes land. Laughter ripples through the audience. Tom talks about his latest film, about pushing boundaries, about the joy of practical effects. His voice is confident, rhythmic, almost soothing. He speaks the way he runs, forward, no hesitation. The hosts nod along, the audience claps on cue, and for a brief moment, it feels like just another polished celebrity appearance. Then Sonny leans slightly forward. "So Tom," she says, her tone measured, her smile polite but restrained, "you've built a career on control, on discipline, on doing things your own way. Some people admire that. Others feel it crosses into something more complicated." There it is. The shift. The temperature in the room changes, subtle but undeniable. Tom's smile tightens just a fraction. He nods, as if welcoming the challenge. "I think discipline is misunderstood," he replies smoothly. "For me, it's about commitment. To my work. To excellence." Sonny doesn't interrupt. She lets the words hang, then follows softly. "And what about commitment outside the screen? To beliefs that have raised serious questions over the years." The audience murmurs. A few heads turn. A producer off-camera stiffens. Tom inhales, slow and deliberate. "This isn't a stunt. This isn't choreography. This is live television. I'm proud of my journey," Tom says carefully. "I don't think it's fair to reduce decades of personal growth into headlines." Sonny nods again, but this time her eyes don't soften. "But headlines exist for a reason. People feel impacted by the influence you carry. Don't you think public figures owe the public clarity?" For the first time, Tom's jaw tightens. It's almost imperceptible, but it's there. The charm doesn't fade, but it hardens. "I think," he says, choosing each word like a stepping stone, "that people deserve respect. And that includes respecting personal boundaries." A ripple of tension spreads through the audience. Someone coughs. A woman in the front row leans forward, sensing something rare unfolding. Sonny doesn't back away. If anything, she straightens. "Respect also means accountability," she responds. "When influence meets ideology, people want answers." Tom shifts in his chair. It's a small movement, but symbolic. A man used to motion suddenly forced to sit with discomfort. His voice lowers. "I've spent my life accountable to my work," he says. "I let my actions speak." Sonny meets his gaze, unwavering. Sometimes silence speaks louder than action. The room goes quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of anticipation, but the brittle kind, the kind that could shatter with one wrong word. Tom's eyes flick briefly toward the audience, then back to Sonny. He smiles again, but this time it doesn't reach his eyes. "I came here to talk about film," he says. "About creativity, not to be put on trial." Sonny's voice stays calm, but firm. "This isn't a trial. It's a conversation. One many feel you've avoided." A collective intake of breath moves through the crowd like a wave. The other hosts glance between them, unsure whether to step in or let it unfold. Tom leans back now, crossing one ankle over the other, reclaiming a fragment of control. "I've never avoided conversation," he says. But I won't be cornered into narratives that ignore the full picture. Sunny pauses, letting the moment breathe. Then paint the picture for us. For a split second, Tom Cruise, global superstar, action legend, master of spectacle, looks caught between two instincts. The performer who knows how to command a room, and the man who knows some truths don't fit neatly into sound bites. The audience waits. The cameras zoom just a little closer. And somewhere between the applause that started this interview and the silence that now grips it, everyone realizes they're no longer watching a routine daytime segment. They're watching a rare clash, one that's only just beginning. Tom doesn't answer immediately. The pause stretches just long enough to make the silence uncomfortable, the kind of silence that forces everyone in the room to confront it. A few audience members shift in their seats. Somewhere off camera, a stagehand freezes, hand hovering over a control panel. Live television has no rewind button, and everyone knows it. Tom finally exhales, slow and controlled. The picture, he says, voice steady but firmer now, is that I believe in responsibility. Personal responsibility. I don't think it's productive to reduce people, or belief systems, into something simplistic or sensational. Sunny listens, her head tilted slightly, as if weighing every syllable. But simplicity isn't what people are asking for, she replies. They're asking for transparency. When powerful figures avoid specifics, it creates mistrust. The word mistrust lands heavy. Tom's eyes narrow, not in anger, but in focus. The same focus he wears before sprinting across a rooftop. Only this time, there's nowhere to run. I haven't avoided specifics, he says. I've avoided exploitation. A low murmur spreads through the audience. One woman whispers, "Wow," under her breath. The co-hosts exchange quick glances, their smiles frozen in place, unsure whether to intervene or let the tension burn. Sunny leans back slightly, folding her hands. Exploitation of whom? She asks. Tom's jaw tightens again. Of private life. Of personal belief. Of things that get twisted because controversy sells better than truth. Sunny nods once. But controversy doesn't exist in a vacuum. It usually starts somewhere. Tom leans forward now, mirroring her earlier posture. The energy between them sharpens, like two opposing currents colliding midstream. So does misinformation, he counters. And I won't validate it by playing along. The audience reacts audibly this time. Some applause, some gasps, a few uncertain murmurs. The divide is clear now. Half the room is leaning toward Tom, the other toward Sunny, and the air feels charged with opposing loyalties. Sunny's voice remains even, but there's steel beneath it. You're not being asked to play along, she says. You're being asked to engage. There's a difference. Tom lets out a small, humorless laugh. Engagement implies good faith, he replies. I'm not convinced that's always present when these topics come up. That does it. A ripple of tension moves across the panel. One of the co-hosts shifts, opening her mouth as if to soften the moment, then thinks better of it and stays silent. The cameras catch everything, the tightened lips, the raised eyebrows, the subtle shake of Sunny's head. Good faith, Sunny repeats quietly. From a journalist who's asking questions the public has been asking for years? Tom straightens. His voice grows louder, not aggressive, but unmistakably assertive. The public also deserves balance. And context. Not interrogation disguised as curiosity. A collective ooh ripples through the audience. This isn't polite disagreement anymore. This is a line being drawn. Sunny doesn't flinch. And celebrities don't get to decide which questions are fair just because they're uncomfortable. The room feels smaller now, like the walls have edged closer. Tom's smile is gone entirely. What replaces it isn't rage, it's resolve. I've faced danger, he says, his tone low and intense. Real danger. I don't shy away from discomfort. But I won't be lectured about courage by someone who's never walked in my shoes. A sharp inhale from the crowd. A woman in the second row raises her hand to her mouth. Sunny's eyes flash, not with anger, but with something closer to disappointment. This isn't about courage, she says. It's about responsibility. Tom shakes his head slowly. Responsibility to whom? To the people influenced by your voice, Sunny answers without hesitation. Especially when silence can be interpreted as endorsement. For a moment, Tom looks genuinely taken aback. Not shocked, but struck. He blinks, then looks away briefly, as if considering something deeper than the argument itself. When he looks back, his voice is quieter. You assume silence, he says, because I don't speak the way you want me to. Sunny softens her tone just slightly. I assume silence because questions go unanswered. The audience is completely still now. No applause. No murmurs. Just eyes locked on the exchange unfolding inches apart. Even the cameras seem to move more slowly, capturing every micro-expression, every flicker of emotion. Tom's hands unclasp. He gestures for the first time, palms open. I've spent my life being dissected, he says. Every choice. Every belief. At some point, you realize not everything belongs to the public. Sonny nods. And yet you live a very public life. A beat. That doesn't mean I forfeit my humanity, Tom replies. That line hits harder than either of them expected. The audience reacts instinctively. Applause breaks out, louder this time, mixed with a few cheers. Sonny waits for it to die down, her expression thoughtful. I'm not denying your humanity, she says when the noise fades. I'm acknowledging your influence. Tom looks at her, searching her face. For a fleeting second, the confrontation feels less like an attack and more like a collision of worldviews. Two people convinced they're standing on moral high ground. And I'm acknowledging, Tom responds, that influence doesn't mean obligation to satisfy every demand for explanation. Sonny tilts her head. Even when those demands come from concern? Tom exhales sharply. Concern can be sincere. It can also be performative. The word hangs there, dangerous and deliberate. A few audience members gasp. One co-host finally interjects softly. Let's take a breath. But Sonny raises a hand, calm but firm. No, this is important. Tom nods once. Then let me be clear, he says, his voice steady but intense. I won't apologize for choosing privacy. And I won't be shamed into speaking on terms that don't respect that. Sonny meets his gaze, unblinking. And I won't apologize for asking questions people are afraid to ask. Another wave of reaction rolls through the room. Applause, tension, disbelief. Social media interns backstage are already typing furiously, eyes wide, knowing clips from this exchange will explode within minutes. The clash has crossed a threshold now. This is no longer just a disagreement. It's a moment, one that feels too raw, too honest, to be smoothed over before the next commercial break. Tom leans back again, arms crossing loosely, his expression guarded. Sonny sits upright, resolute, hands folded on the table. Between them, the space feels charged with everything unsaid. And as the camera pulls slightly wider, capturing the entire panel and a stunned audience, one thing becomes painfully clear. Whatever happens next, this interview will not be remembered for a movie promotion. It will be remembered for what happens when control meets confrontation. Live, unscripted, and impossible to undo. The red light above the main camera stays on, unblinking. A silent reminder that millions of eyes are now leaning closer to their screens. The co-host who tried to interrupt withdraws, folding her hands, sensing that stepping in now would only fracture something that's already cracking open. The tension has its own gravity. It doesn't want to be interrupted. Tom breaks the stillness first, his voice quieter, slower, stripped of performance. He says, people think intensity is anger. It's not. It's care. I care deeply about what I do, about how I live. That's why I'm protective. Sonny listens, but her expression doesn't soften. Protection can turn into insulation, she replies. And insulation can disconnect you from the people you're affecting. Tom looks at her sharply. You keep saying affecting, he says. As if my existence is some kind of burden others carry. Sonny's response is immediate. Influence is never neutral. A murmur rolls through the audience again, softer this time, like a distant rumble of thunder. Tom nods slowly, as if conceding a point he doesn't fully agree with. Influence can inspire, he says. It can empower. It can motivate people to push past fear. And it can also normalize silence, Sonny counters. Especially when difficult questions arise. Tom's brow furrows. You frame silence as something sinister, he says. What if it's simply restraint? Sonny leans forward again, elbows lightly touching the table. Then explain the restraint, she says. Help people understand it. Tom's lips press into a thin line. For the first time, a hint of frustration flickers openly across his face. Because explanation becomes expectation, he replies. And expectation becomes entitlement. The audience reacts sharply, half applause, half uneasy shifting. The divide in the room has never been clearer. Tom is speaking to those who believe fame doesn't erase boundaries. Sonny is speaking to those who believe power demands answers. So where does accountability live? Sonny asks. If not in explanation, then where? Tom holds her gaze. In actions, he says firmly. Inconsistency. In living by principles even when they're unpopular. Sunny's eyes narrow slightly. And who decides which principles deserve scrutiny? The individual, Tom answers without hesitation. That's convenient, Sunny replies, her voice calm but cutting. For the individual. A sharp intake of breath ripples through the crowd. Tom's head tilts, incredulous for the first time. So now conviction is convenience. No, Sunny says. Unchecked conviction is risk. The word risk lands like a dropped glass. Tom laughs once, short and incredulous. Risk, he repeats. You're talking to someone who risks his life for his craft. Sunny doesn't smile. Physical risk isn't the only kind that matters. The applause that follows is loud, sustained. Tom waits it out, his expression unreadable. When the noise fades, his voice is lower, more personal. I've spent years being told who I am, he says. By people who've never met me. By narratives built for clicks. And every time I engage, it feeds the same cycle. Sunny's tone softens, but only slightly. And disengaging feeds another. Tom shakes his head. No, he says. It starves it. Sunny exhales through her nose, a quiet sign of disagreement. That's not how public discourse works anymore. Then maybe that's the problem, Tom snaps. The sudden edge in his voice sends a visible jolt through the audience. A woman in the back whispers, "Oh my God." The co-hosts sit frozen, eyes darting between them. Sunny's expression remains composed, but her voice firms. So the problem is the questions. The problem, Tom says, leaning forward, is the assumption that I owe something beyond my work. Sunny meets him head-on. When your work intersects with belief, culture, and power, you do. For a split second, Tom looks genuinely angry. Not explosive, but tightly contained, like a coiled wire. That's your opinion, he says sharply. It's the public's concern, Sunny replies. The room feels like it's holding its breath. Tom's hands clench, then relax. He closes his eyes briefly, as if recalibrating. When he opens them, his voice is measured again, but colder. I won't be turned into a symbol for debates I didn't create, he says. I'm a human being. Sunny nods slowly. So are the people who feel harmed by silence. That lands hard. The audience reaction is immediate. Gasps, murmurs, a few sharp claps. Tom looks genuinely stunned now. Not defensive. Not angry. Just struck. Harmed, he repeats quietly. Yes, Sunny says. Harmed by influence that feels one-sided. By power that never explains itself. Tom's gaze drops to the table for the first time. The room reads it as hesitation, maybe even doubt. He looks back up, eyes intense. You're asking me to take responsibility for interpretations, he says. For projections. That's impossible. Sunny responds gently but firmly. You're already carrying it. A long silence follows. No one speaks. Even the audience seems afraid to breathe. The camera cuts briefly to a wide shot. Every face rapt, stunned, aware they're witnessing something raw. Tom finally breaks the silence. I came here in good faith, he says. But this feels like an ambush. Sunny's jaw tightens. Hard questions aren't ambushes. They are when the outcome feels predetermined, Tom fires back. Sunny shakes her head. The outcome depends on honesty. Tom laughs again, but this time there's no humor at all. Honesty, he says. Or confession? The audience erupts, some clapping, some booing, the noise colliding into chaos. The producer's voice crackles faintly through an earpiece somewhere backstage, urging calm, urging transition. Sunny raises her voice just enough to cut through the noise. No one's asking for confession, she says. They're asking for clarity. Tom stands. The movement is sudden, startling. Chairs scrape softly as the entire panel reacts. Gasps ripple through the audience. The camera jolts, quickly reframing. Tom remains standing, hands at his sides, posture rigid. Clarity, he says, looking down at Sunny, then out at the audience, is not something you extract under pressure. Sunny looks up at him, unflinching. Then don't walk away from it. For a moment, it feels like everything might tip over, like he might leave, or say something that can't be taken back. The room is electrified, suspended between escalation and collapse. Tom remains standing, breathing controlled, eyes locked forward. And everyone watching knows, whatever happens next will define this moment forever. For 3 endless seconds, Tom Cruise stands there, the weight of the room pressing in from every direction. The audience doesn't know whether to applaud, protest, or brace for a walk-off. Sunny Hostin remains seated, chin lifted, eyes steady, refusing to look away. The cameras capture it all, the imbalance of power, the the symbolism of height and posture, the unspoken question hanging between them. Who blinks first? Tom finally exhales. It's not dramatic, not explosive, just human. He lowers himself back into the chair slowly, deliberately, as if making a statement with restraint rather than force. The scraping sound echoes louder than it should. A wave of nervous laughter ripples through the audience, quickly dying when no one on stage smiles. I'm not walking away, Tom says quietly. But I won't be pushed into a corner either. Sunny nods once. No one's asking you to be cornered, she replies. They're asking you to step into the light. Tom looks at her, really looks at her now. Not as an adversary, but as someone who genuinely believes what she's saying. The light, he says, can blind just as easily as it reveals. A few audience members clap softly, uncertainly. The energy has shifted. The clash is no longer sharp. It's heavy, contemplative, emotionally charged in a way that lingers in the chest. One of the co-hosts finally breaks the tension, her voice cautious. This has clearly struck a nerve for everyone. Sunny doesn't turn away from Tom. Because it matters, she says. Moments like this matter. Tom nods slowly. They do, he agrees. And that's why they shouldn't be reduced to sound bites. The irony of saying that on live television is not lost on anyone. Somewhere backstage, a producer rubs their temples, already imagining the headlines. The conversation winds down, not because it's resolved, but because time demands it. The show moves toward commercial, but the audience barely notices. When the applause sign lights up, it feels almost inappropriate. The clapping is scattered, conflicted. Some stand. Some remain seated, arms crossed, faces thoughtful. As the cameras finally cut, something unusual happens. Tom and Sunny exchange a brief nod. Not friendly, not hostile. Respectful. Heavy. Final. Within minutes, the fallout begins. Clips flood social media before the studio lights even cool. Tom Cruise stands up on The View. Sunny Hostin challenges Hollywood icon Liv. Comment sections ignite like dry brush. One side hails Tom as a man defending his humanity against intrusive interrogation. The other praises Sunny for doing what few dare, pressing power without apology. Hashtags trend. Reaction videos multiply. Body language experts dissect every movement. Lip readers speculate. Some call it brave. Others call it disrespectful. No one calls it boring. Entertainment outlets rush out think pieces by the hour. Was this the most tense moment in The View's history? Did Tom Cruise cross a line, or finally draw one? Did Sunny Hostin expose silence, or provoke it? Backstage sources leak conflicting narratives. One claims Tom was warned about the direction of the questions. Another insists he was blindsided. A third says the tension continued off camera in hushed, serious tones. None of it is officially confirmed. All of it is consumed. By nightfall, late-night hosts joke about it carefully. Analysts debate it earnestly. Fans argue passionately. And somewhere in the noise, a deeper question lingers, one that no headline fully captures. What do we really expect from our icons? Tom Cruise doesn't tweet. He doesn't post a statement. His silence this time feels louder than ever, interpreted 1,000 different ways within hours. Sunny Hostin, meanwhile, addresses it the next morning with measured calm, standing by her questions without escalating the conflict. Conversation, she says, isn't comfort. The audience that watched it live will remember something the clips can't fully convey. The tension in the air, the way the room seemed to tilt, the feeling that this wasn't rehearsed or performative. It was raw, unfiltered, two worldviews colliding in real time. And that's why the moment endures. Not because someone won, not because someone lost, but because something honest cracked through the surface of daytime television and reminded everyone watching that fame, power, and influence are never as simple as they seem. Now it's your turn. Was Tom Cruise right to draw a line and protect his privacy? Was Sunny Hostin right to push for accountability and clarity? Did this conversation expose truth or deepen the divide? Share your opinion in the comments below. Your voice matters here. And if you want more explosive, cinematic, and emotionally charged stories like this, moments that pull you inside the tension and refuse to let go, subscribe now to The Truth Narrator. Like this video, share it with someone who loves real, unfiltered drama, and stay tuned. Because some moments don't just make headlines. They change the conversation.